Take two. Today's story is Amaranth and the Beast.
This is an Alias the Jester story, so here we go. It was a fine morning in September, and Alias the Jester was helping Meredith gather wild plants for his magical potions. They'd found a particularly good spot deep in the forest. The only problem was, Alias didn't know very much about herbs. "What about this one, Meredith?" asked Alias, pointing to a funny-looking herb. No, I don't want that. That's hairy bittersweet." "Looks more like a bit of hairy sweater to me," said Alias, laughing. Perhaps that is what it's called after all," said Meredith. "Oh, there's an interesting one," he said, pointing to another plant. "That's ploughman's spikenard. You don't see that one often. I must remember this spot." "What, you mean you've never been here before?" asked Alias, looking round rather uneasily. "Oh, no, I never usually come this far," said Meredith. Then he noticed something else. "Aha! Now what have we here? It looks very like Danish scurvy grass. But it can't be. Perhaps I'll take a little bit home with me anyway." So saying, he pulled up a small plant. There was a flash of lightning, a rumble of thunder, and then roar! "Oh dear, did you hear what I just heard?" asked Meredith, looking rather uncomfortable. Just then there was another roar. This time it was louder and obviously nearer. "Roar!" Yes, that's just what I heard," said Alias, "only it wasn't so loud the first time." At that moment they saw it, the beast. It seemed to be in a very bad mood. "Here, who's been pinching my coral eyes off Triffider?" it roared, looking accusingly at Meredith. Oh dear, said Meredith, looking at the herb in dismay. "You're in for a thumping, you are," said the beast. "Now, before I start, where do you want me to post the bits to?" "Post the bits to?" said Alias. "Oh, Jupiter." No, not Jupiter," said Meredith hastily. "You'll never be able to afford the stamps. Make it Horton Bottoms." "Just as long as I know," growled the beast. "Here, wait a minute. Horton Bottoms." Suddenly the beast became much more friendly. "Are the royal family still living in that lovely detached castle?" "Well, yes, they are," said Meredith. "Do you know them?" "Know them? Good old Arthur. Dear Edith. Lovely woman. Tell me," added the beast in a rather offhand manner, "didn't they have a daughter or something? Now, what was her name? Amanda? Annabelle?" "Oh, you mean Amaranth," said Meredith. "Yes, that's it," said the beast. "Lovely girl, or so I heard. Look, you might like to take this for her." He stooped down and cut a rather evil-looking plant from the border and gave it to Meredith. "Here you are. Compliments of the beast. Now help yourself to the herbs. I've got to go. Be seeing you," he said, and sauntered back to his castle. "Cheerio, then," called Meredith after him. "Oh, well, I think we ought to make a run for it." "Good idea," said Alias. "Come on." Back at the castle, Amaranth was absolutely delighted by the flower that the beast had sent her. So was Queen Edith. In fact, Edith was just a tiny bit jealous. "Yes, dear, it's lovely," she said. "Of course, the only flower that your father ever gave me was self-raising." But there was something rather strange about the flower. The more that Amaranth smelled it, the more she was affected by its strange perfume. She slowly drifted off into a sleep-like trance. Later that day, Alias the Jester was trying to entertain Arthur in the throne room. As usual, he wasn't having much success. Just as he was getting to the punchline, Alias noticed something rather odd. There, floating by the window, was Princess Amaranth. She was heading in the direction of the beast's castle. "Sorry," said Alias to the king, "I've got to go." "Well, what kind of a joke do you call that?" asked Arthur. "They get worse and worse." It was some time before Alias, Boswell and Meredith reached the beast's castle. "She must have been brought here by some kind of witchcraft," said Meredith. "We ought to be very careful." He pulled the doorbell. Bong! The noise was so loud it made their teeth rattle, but there didn't seem to be any reply. "Perhaps it's out of order," said Meredith doubtfully. "Try knocking." But at that moment the door opened and the beast looked out. "Hello," said Meredith. "We were just passing and we thought we'd like to drop in." "Oh, yes," said the beast. "Well, come in and make yourself at home." They settled down in the beast's living room with tea and fairy buns when the jester noticed that Boswell had found something. It was one of Amaranth's slippers. "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Beast," said Alias. "The dog's run off." He slipped out of the room and ran after Boswell, who'd started to follow Amaranth's trail. Unfortunately, the beast had arranged a number of amusements for his visitors. Alias hadn't gone far after Boswell when he came across a door marked "Push to open," but as soon as he pushed it, bang, the door opened outwards and flattened him against the wall. A little further down the passageway he came across a rather innocent-looking statue, but after he tiptoed past it, the statue transformed into a gruesome monster with great big fangs. I'm beginning to get fed up of this, said Alias to himself. Time I stopped being the jester. He slipped out of his jester's disguise. Superhero. From then on, all the beast's attempts to trap him were doomed to failure. After avoiding many more of his dastardly tricks, Alias came across a rather luxurious prison cell. There, sitting in the middle of a pile of cushions, was Princess Amaranth. "Oh, Alias, you've saved me from this horrible dungeon," cried Amaranth. "You're so wonderful." The beast was very sorry for what he'd done. It turned out that he'd been lonely and that he was in love with Amaranth. "It would have helped if you'd read the fairy stories, wouldn't it?" he said. "Fairy stories? What fairy stories?" asked Amaranth. "You know," said the beast. "The ones where the princess kisses the frog or the beast or whatever socially disadvantaged character it happens to be." Amaranth felt so sorry for the beast that she decided to kiss him. Timidly she approached him with eyes closed and lips puckered. Bang! Flash! "Wow!" cried everyone at once. The beast had been transformed into the most handsome prince any of them had ever seen. "Oh, beast, you're so handsome," said Amaranth, blushing. "Yes, I am rather, aren't I?" said the beast, who seemed to have become very conceited. "Mind you, I'm a little worried about my hair. I wouldn't want it to become dull and listless, and I'm not sure whether this doublet really sets off the colour of my eyes." Amaranth, Alias and Meredith looked at each other in dismay. "I think perhaps we'd better go," said Alias. Back at Horton Bottoms, Edith was very excited by their story. "I remember being kissed by a handsome prince, and look what happened to me." "Yes," said the jester, "you turned into a frog." "Jester! Meredith!" said Arthur. "Yes, your majesty," they both replied. "You're fired!" "Yes, your majesty. Thank you, your majesty." And that's the end of that story.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.